Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve. Today's video is a spoiler review of Season 3, Episode 4, which is titled Glorious 5-Year Plan. As you will have already seen now, the episode opens with some Solid Gold, which was a music television series from the 1980s. Did anyone else feel their hearts swell with emotion when they showed Wayland Flowers and Madam? The timing of this all feels like kismet, because if you watch RuPaul's Drag Race, the currently airing season is an all-star season of all winners, and one of those winners is Raja, and one of her Snatch Game characters on this season was the puppet Madam. Incredible performance. Raja has been getting robbed all season of getting a star, but maybe by the time I publish this review, she will have finally gotten one. She definitely deserves it. But anyway, on this show, Solid Gold, The Boys has Jensen Ackles' Soulja Boy doing a Rex Harrison-esque rendition of Blondie's Rapture. In life, you make choices, and choices were most certainly made. No, but it was a real moment for the show, and I'm assuming his fandom is going to spread that fun little clip everywhere. I had fun watching it, at least. It always impresses me just how much The Boys is able to cram into a single episode. So for the sake of organization, I'm going to try to go through the main parts of certain characters' stories in this episode, even though a lot of people's stories overlap with one another. A-Train and the Pepsi commercial parody. It really feels like it speaks for itself, but I suppose I'm glad they used it as a reference point because of how well it fits into A-Train's turmoil this season of being a celebrity mascot for a corporation that is trying to exploit social justice for profit. A-Train feels like he's experiencing an awakening, but it's not a linear path to enlightenment. He has yet to fully find and embrace that strength to fight back and walk away from the fame, the glory, the money, and not just money for money's sake, but money as a tool for security in life. Annie made that alliance with her ex, Alex, also known as Supersonic, and I really liked him when he said, "I'm gonna help you because it's the right thing to do." I really felt that, but we all see how that went. He tried to recruit A-Train, who then turned on him, and then Homelander killed Supersonic. I'm going to nitpick this part just a little bit. I'm not opposed to Homelander's actions against Supersonic since I think it makes sense for these characters and their stories, but I feel like it sort of felt abrupt in a less than ideal way. I think that because we are now all the way into Season 3, we've developed a certain level of attachment to a lot of these characters because of how much time we have spent with them. And it felt like we needed 1 or 2 more episodes with Supersonic before Homelander got him so that we could develop a deeper attachment to him and in turn feel a greater impact at losing him. The ensemble feels so crowded that it does feel like we're hitting a point of some stories being stretched thin for certain characters. For example, the fact that we didn't even get to see any footage of A-Train going to Homelander to sell Supersonic out, that betrayal feels like something we needed to see on screen. I would have wanted to see Jesse, the actor, perform that exchange so I could really see the range of his emotions and feelings to better understand A-Train's decision to do that and how it fits into his larger journey as a character. How do you go from trying to hold Blue Hawk accountable for racial profiling and over-policing black and brown neighborhoods to selling out a brown Latino man to Homelander? Since I've mentioned Homelander in passing, I might as well also point out that now that this episode has aired, I think it's very clear that Homelander's material this season is an allegory for him as a character being representative of Trump, and this conspiracy Homelander started spinning on the news is an allegory for QAnon. I don't want to elaborate too much on those details in this video because I think that YouTube's algorithms would misinterpret me saying something as if I was claiming it to be true, as opposed to me just presenting a basic Google definition of what that theory states. So if you are not familiar, just go ahead and do a quick Google search of what exactly it entails so you can make those connections between what Homelander alleges is going on when he's being interviewed on the news and that particular theory. I also find it fascinating that Homelander and Victoria Newman made a deal with each other for her to betray Stan Edgar. But again, this is another instance where I feel like you're seeing the show being stretched too thin. I would have wanted to see more of how that deal came to be. I get that for things like the dramatic reveal that Victoria betrayed Stan or that Homelander killed Supersonic. It's good to have it be a dramatic reveal, but to not even consider showing us a flashback of how we got to that point is frustrating as a viewer. Did Victoria go to Homelander or did he go to her? Was he prepared to threaten her and she came up with the deal on the fly, or did she already have that plan in mind? But anyway, Victoria injected her daughter with Compound V, which is giving me nasty Operation Paperclip energy. So as far as I'm concerned, throw Victoria under the jail. The Boys as a show stresses me out a lot more when they get kids involved in the story. I'm not spoiling anything about Ryan's story this season, but from what you've already seen of him, and then now you're getting another child involved, and we had that flashback scene of Annie in a child pageant, I can just feel my blood pressure rising and boiling like salty pasta water. But now let's switch over to the boys themselves as they embark on their mission to Mother Russia. I'm jealous of fictional characters at this point. I want to go to Russia and I want to visit the Museum of Cosmonautics, among other fun sightseeing things, but that's besides the point. They head to Russia and Butcher orders Kimiko, my girl, the love of my life, to go take out some bad guys that Nina wants gone. For anyone who doesn't remember, Nina is the offensive stereotype of a Russian woman with a terrible accent. I don't dislike her because she's a villain. I dislike her because, unlike the rest of the characters on the show, she is nothing but a lazy caricature, and I expect better from the boys as a show. Kimiko is standing up for herself so much this season, and for Frenchie as well, and it's everything. I love that moment when she gets the phone out and lets this monster Butcher know that she's not his gun. She's right, and she should say it. So Kimiko is getting ready to infiltrate this mansion. She is dressed in this gorgeous, sparkling dress. And this is a small detail, but I love that when the bodyguard is checking to see if this is who he's supposed to be letting in, he says, Irina, and she just smiles as if to confirm this to be the case. And this is a really small detail that I'm assuming wasn't intentional, but loads of Russians are Asian. People really love to forget how large Russia is and how many people in East Russia are Asian. For example, 2 Soviet snipers, heroes, who killed hundreds of each, Semyon Nomokonov and Fyodor Oklopkov. If you just look at their pictures with no context and no names given, it wouldn't surprise me if you were to mistake them for being from a fully Asian country. So even though neither Karen nor Kimiko are East Russian, me personally as a viewer, I appreciate the acknowledgement, even if unintentional, of a wonderfully diverse community with a rich history and heroes historically that have done so much to fight against the global epidemic of fascism and not been given their fair share of the historical legacy for it, outside of Russia anyway. So Kimiko gets in there and just absolutely destroys every bad guy in her path, which I appreciate so much. I loved everything about it. The fact that she was using adult toys to take down abusive men who partake in the trafficking and exploitation of sex workers, that is everything I want from my superheroes, and more. It is admittedly funny, though, that Eric Kripke has mentioned in interviews that he really wants those toys to become official merch for the show, and that the corporate higher-ups are refusing to do it. I'm curious as to whether or not they will stick to that, because corporations want money above all else, and I definitely think that they would make money if they officially released those things as merch. But more than just the righteous violence of this scene, I love that it takes a turn and we get to do more unpacking of Kimiko's emotions about her powers and feeling like she's a monster, because these women that she's just saved are afraid of her because of what she did, and also the fact that she can survive that bullet wound. Kimiko explains later to Frenchie that she doesn't blame them for being afraid of her because she knows what it's like to be kidnapped and trafficked and sold. But what I really hope Kimiko is able to do eventually is achieve self-acceptance and see herself as the hero she is. She has saved people, and she will probably save even more people, depending on how many more seasons we get. It's a good way of ensuring that the material subverts from the dragon lady trope. Kimiko as a character has hopes and desires and vulnerabilities and emotional depth and layers. There just aren't a lot of characters like Kimiko in Hollywood, especially for Japanese women, so I cannot stress enough how much of a joy it is to watch her week after week. Or in my case for season 3 all in one go because I got press screeners, which I quickly binged. But this just keeps getting better because when she comes back and she talks to Frenchie, that whole conversation and exchange, it watered my plants, it moisturized my skin, and it bought a year's supply of food for my cat. By the way, for those of you who are new here, this is my cat, and her name is Kimiko. Yes, really. And she was in fact named after Kimiko on the show. I'm just saying, I feel like I see the family resemblance. This is a Japanese family. And do you want me to put you down? But anyway, this scene had just banger after banger. Kimiko pointing out that Butcher sold her and that Butcher and Nina are the same. No lies were detected. Call it out. And her telling Frenchie, we only have each other, it's you and me. Can you hear that? The sound of my kimchi shipping heart beating out of my chest. And then when they decide to run away to Marseille together and she full body tackles him with a hug, somebody get a mop because my heart just exploded and now there's guts everywhere. Now we have one last major scene to get to with some big developments for Kimiko specifically. But before we talk about that, we need to do the lead into that scene, which is that Huey finds out about Temp V and refuses to abide by Butcher's orders to not take any, and he develops a teleporting superpower that leaves him stripped bare. There's something so fitting about that. It's almost poetic because he really had to cross a line in a major way in season 1 when he chose to kill Translucent, a soup who had to be naked when using his powers. I know they haven't been able to talk about Huey's powers in detail in promotional interviews, but now that the news is out, I really want to know if that played a part in their decision making of what power Huey had. But anyway, I love that entire sequence where Butcher doesn't reveal his powers until Huey gives his approval. The fact that Mother's Milk is so horrified by Butcher having taken Temp V, and running parallel to that reaction, the fact that Kimiko gives Huey just this disappointed head shake, we do not approve. But then of course, we finally reach the moment that all the Jensen Ackles stans have been waiting for. Daddy's home, or at least he's out of the box. I've seen Jensen say in an interview that this was the first scene he shot on the show, and that is just so funny to me. Truly a trial by fire. You have to remember though, he's American, he's not European, so I guess he feels some type of way about being nude in front of all these people. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Jensen Ackles, and this is my sock. If you've seen any European actor do an interview and they're asked about being nude in a movie, they're just so consistently laissez-faire about the whole thing. I find the contrast funny, but anyway, Soldier Boy is here and he unleashes some sort of blast, which on the one hand, I want to thank him for because it gave really good kimchi content where Kimiko jumps in front of it to save Frenchie. But at the same time, he hurt my girl, so now he's my enemy. Do you see my dilemma? For some reason, Kimiko's wounds are not healing, and on top of that, the boys as a team is more damaged than ever before. MM says he's not going to be able to fix this. Frenchie was already ready to leave with Kimiko, but he wanted to stay for the sake of Petite Huey and MM. But really, what is there to save at this point? If even Baby Spice can be corrupted, where do you go from there? And yes, Huey is Baby Spice, as if he would be any other Spice Girl. But it's another great episode, and we are now at the halfway point of this season. Soldier Boy is officially here, and we have so much more action and drama and humor to look forward to in the remaining episodes. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can follow along with more of my running commentary about the show this season, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.